Every day, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau holds a press conference where he updates Canadians on what the government has been doing in response to the coronavirus crisis. But one of the things that seems to be missing from these press conferences is Justin Trudeau's plan for getting Canada back on its feet. What is his and his cabinet's plan to get us back to normal, or whatever that new normal is going to be, and how are they going to tackle the challenges that we currently face? Now, I wanted to make this video because it's a really important point we have to ponder as a country. However, a lot of this discussion seems to revolve strictly around economic factors and really placing economic factors versus mortality. It's a little bit more complicated than that, and I hope we can flesh out some of these issues to make that conversation a bit more fruitful and a bit more useful. So the first place I want to look is here. This is a story out of BC that on the face of it seems very positive. BC restaurants begin planning for dine-in instead of takeout. And you think, okay, great, now we're going to get to some semblance of normalcy or whatever new normal that's going to be. We're going to slowly start getting there. But if you scroll down just a bit in the story, it says that about 180 to 190,000 people are presently out of work who work in this industry. That is a huge number of people. Just below, 15 to 25% of restaurants may close permanently as a result of the coronavirus crisis because they simply do not have the money to stay open, and a lot of the businesses simply are just going to go bankrupt as a result. Now, this is an economic factor, and economic factors are definitely important to consider. We're spending a lot of money, and it's something that we're going to have to do. We're going to have to spend money to get the economy and get the country back on its feet. But money is not the entire story. I want to talk to you about something called the social determinants of health. Now, these are the things that we don't normally calculate because they're very difficult to quantify. You cannot often put a cost, and the cost or dollar value you'd like to put is very different from person to person. These are the things we need to keep in mind, and the type of plan that I would like to see the government coming up with on how we're going to get Canadians back to, again, some sort of normal life, or back to something different, because we cannot simply sustain the current regime that we're doing. We cannot isolate or stay home for the next 18 months until we get a vaccine for this virus. So I want to go through a couple of these obvious ones with you, and then talk about something else. So now, one of the things that most Canadians are obviously facing as a social determinant of health is isolation. So right here, social isolation is a very big one. People are social animals. We need to have conversations. We need to see other people. A number of reports coming out of China, France, Italy show that domestic violence is up, that divorces are up, and isolation, forced isolation in a small confined space is not healthy and is not something we can sustain in the long term. It's going to have health consequences that are maybe not readily apparent, but that are nonetheless very important and something we need to consider. There's also hunger, and in that, nutrition and malnutrition. People may not be eating or taking care of themselves in such a way that they normally do or normally should be, and that's obviously because we're all stuck at home. We can't really go anywhere, and even if you want to go for a jog or something like that, oftentimes you're discouraged, and especially by the social media mob that really is desperate to call these snitch lines, as as I call them, to really just snitch on their neighbors who want to get some exercise or want to leave their house. There's also housing in general, access to care. I mean, right now, most of the medical services, the non-critical medical services, are suspended. Many people cannot see their doctor, or if they can, then it's by conference call. Again, this is going to have health outcomes for people down the road. It's not maybe going to be apparent what exactly caused these health conditions, but it's obviously clear that if you're sitting at home, you're not taking care of yourself, you're not able to do the things that you normally do, your mood is affected, that you're going to have a health outcome. And that brings me to the overall point that almost no one is discussing, and that's why here at True North we're all about discussing a number of things, a number of issues that are just not being discussed, especially in the mainstream media, and that is the difference in morbidity to mortality. Whenever we have the discussion on a plan going forward, it always revolves around the economic factors and the mortality. So we're going to open up the economy, how many people are going to get killed. That's really the basis for discussion, but no one is talking about the morbidity. Now, for reference, morbidity is morbidity is the physical or psychological state that's anything out of the norm. It's something that's going to cause a health effect or health outcome for Canadians. It's really in line and similar to the social determinants of health, but morbidity is something that is often tracked or at least discussed in a bit of a more detailed fashion than just the social determinants of health, because those are very, very broad. So one of the things, again, that's important is that people's health outcome is going to be affected by how they are forced to react or how they are behaving right now during the quarantine, during the stay-home orders. Now, how does this connect to the economic factors? It's not really about money, it's not about large corporations or billionaires. It's about the restaurateur who is now going to lose his business and possibly his home because of the coronavirus, where he simply can't get any customers and he's not able to stay afloat. It's about the single mother who owns a salon who may be forced to shut down for a year, especially if we keep social distancing rules and prevent certain businesses, certain occupations from getting close to one another. I mean, you can't really get a haircut if you have to stay 6 feet away from another person. And so, again, the economic factors are important to look at, but more so we have to see what economic factors are going to affect social determinants of health, and how is that going to affect the morbidity. The entire discussion has to revolve not just around how many people are going to die right now from the coronavirus, but how many people will have negative health incomes and how many people may actually die or, God forbid, kill themselves. There was a report out of LA, I believe, where a suicide hotline received 8,000% increase, an 8,000% increase in calls. So it's really something we need to balance, and this is something that we're not seeing from the government. There's a lot of economic plans. They're often short-term. They're often discussing a number of the financial issues. So there's the CERB that's giving Canadians about $2,000, up to $2,000 every 4 weeks. But there's almost nothing on morbidity, and this is something that we'd like to see from the government, something that is imperative that we have a discussion on, and something that we plan for when we eventually move to reopen. So for True North, I'm Sam Eskenasi. Please stay safe, wash your hands, and we'll see you again next time. Take care.